She sat there shaking, staring at the red folder. Everything she hid, I already knew. Every lie she whispered to him, I saved. And when I told her, "You don't live here anymore. You don't own any of this. You never did," she didn't cry. She just crumbled. Because in that moment, she realized I was never the fool. I was the storm. I am Jason Miller. You ever look back on a time in your life and wonder how you missed all the signs? That was me. 6 months ago, I would have told you I had it all. A beautiful wife, a thriving company, a sleek house in the suburbs, 2 cars, and a golden retriever named Max. We were the textbook definition of a power couple. I ran a mid-sized marketing agency in Austin. My wife, Lauren, worked in corporate finance for a global firm. She was sharp, stunning, the kind of woman who could command a room with a glance and kill a deal with one sentence. And I was proud of that, proud to be the man standing beside her. We hosted dinner parties. We posted smiling vacation photos. Our Christmas cards were borderline nauseating. Matching sweaters, snowflake backgrounds, the works. From the outside, we looked bulletproof. Hell, even from the inside. It felt that way for a while. We met 8 years ago at a tech mixer in Dallas. I remember she wore this red blazer and ordered whiskey on the rocks while everyone else was sipping wine like sheep. We hit it off fast. 2 months later, we moved in together. 1 year after that, we were married in a vineyard in California. My dad pulled me aside at the reception and said, "You picked a queen, son. Just make sure she doesn't start playing chess while you're still playing checkers." I laughed it off back then, but now it haunts me. The first few years were honestly great. We built our lives brick by brick, grinding through startup chaos, surviving layoffs, helping each other with work stress. I got her through a family lawsuit with her sister. She got me through my mother's stroke. We were solid. But if I had to pinpoint when the rot began, I'd say about 18 months ago. That's when Lauren got promoted, senior finance executive. Bigger office, more travel, new people around her. That's when she started talking about rebalancing priorities, whatever the hell that meant. She started staying late more often. Not crazy at first. A few nights here and there. Working on quarterly closes, weekend team retreats. Nothing unusual. But then came the phone habits. Her phone was always face down, notifications off. She started locking it and guarding it like it held state secrets. She'd take calls in the hallway, whisper, laugh. Not that nervous romantic laugh I knew. This was the laugh you use when you're trying to impress someone who doesn't know you're already taken. One night, I came home early from a client pitch. Lauren wasn't expecting me. She was in the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, back turned. I heard her say, "Yeah, I miss you too, but I can't talk right now. He's gonna be home soon." She froze when she saw me. I smiled, pretended I didn't hear a thing. She hung up fast and said it was a call with her boss about travel arrangements. I nodded, kissed her cheek, said I'd go walk Max, but in my head, something snapped. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Why? Because I needed to know the truth first. See, I'm not a hothead. I don't scream. I don't throw dishes. I build systems. I analyze. I plan. That's why my business took off. And that's exactly how I handled this. I created a new Google account, got a private phone, installed monitoring software, and started collecting data. Over the next few weeks, the truth trickled in, drop by poisonous drop. Lauren wasn't just having an affair, she was in love. Or at least, whatever version of love a cheater convinces herself is justified. His name was Daniel Grant. He was a junior executive at her company, 6 years younger than me, drove a leased BMW, and had the jawline of a guy who spent more time in mirrors than meetings. From what I could tell, it had been going on for at least 9 months. And here's the part that really got me, she was planning her exit, not just emotionally, financially, hidden accounts, shared assets being shifted, business talks sprinkled in like she was preparing to split the company too. That's when I realized she wasn't cheating on me impulsively. She was strategically phasing me out. But she made one mistake. She underestimated how quiet I can be. When I'm building something, she thought she was 5 moves ahead. She had no idea I was about to flip the whole board. They say the worst kind of pain is the one you never expected from the person you trusted the most. I used to laugh at stories about people spying on their partners. Hidden apps, GPS trackers, checking phone records. Felt like something desperate people did. But now I understood it. Not from a place of insecurity, but from clarity. When your gut whispers something's wrong, ignoring it doesn't make you noble. It makes you blind. Lauren was a strategist. She'd never leave a trail of lipstick or a forgotten love note. That wasn't her style. But no one is flawless forever. I started small. Got myself a cheap burner phone, prepaid and untraceable. Registered an anonymous Gmail. Installed keylogger software on our shared desktop at home. Subtle, encrypted, undetectable. Next, I got access to our joint mobile account. Call logs, text records, data usage. It took 2 weeks to collect enough to confirm everything. Lauren and Daniel weren't just cheating. They were strategizing. He used phrases like, "When this is all over, you'll be free. Start lining up your own legal people. He won't see it coming." They called each other Eve and Adam as code names. How poetic. I read every word. Sometimes I had to stop and breathe, just to keep from punching the wall. But I stayed silent. I wasn't going to lose it. I was going to win. I took my time. While Lauren was out traveling for work, I did some traveling of my own. I met with a lawyer, a sharp, viciously good divorce attorney named Charlotte Green, who specialized in high-asset separation cases. I handed her a folder labeled confidential and said, "I'm not ready to file yet. I just want to know how to protect myself." Quietly. She flipped through the documents, notes, screenshots. Her eyebrow raised slightly, then she nodded. "This isn't just about divorce," she said. "It's about strategy. You've got leverage, but we need time. Do not confront her." I wasn't planning to. She helped me draft a plan. Freeze new joint investments. Move key assets into protected holdings under my business entity. Open a new bank account Lauren didn't know about. Secretly revoke her name from my company's shareholder agreement. It was never finalized. Thank God. Record everything. Texts, calls, calendar syncs, even backup from our smart home audio logs. It felt wrong at first, like I was betraying something sacred. But then I remembered. She already did. The hard part was playing dumb, still smiling at her over dinner, still acting impressed when she talked about rough work trips or long meetings. I kissed her goodbye in the mornings. I even bought her flowers one day, just to keep up the charade. She smiled and said, "You've been so sweet lately. What brought this on?" I smiled back, just appreciating what I have. And in my head, I added, "Before I take it all away." There was one night that nearly broke me. I came home late from the gym, intentionally, just in time to hear her whispering into her phone upstairs. I stopped in the hallway, just outside our bedroom. She said, "He has no idea. I could tell him the moon's made of cheese, and he'd believe it. Just a few more months. Then we go clean." She laughed after that. A soft, smug little laugh that cut through my ribs. I stood there frozen, listening to the woman I loved planning my erasure. But I didn't burst in. I didn't scream. I walked away, sat on the couch, turned on the TV, and watched an episode of Shark Tank like nothing had happened. The next day, I emailed Charlotte. Subject line, "Let's begin the clock." There's something oddly cinematic about the moment your life officially shatters. Not when you suspect, not when you assume, but when you see it, right there in front of you, clear, undeniable, final. It happened on a rainy Thursday night. Lauren was out of town again, another finance conference in Denver, or so she said. But thanks to a GPS ping I'd linked to her car's onboard app weeks earlier, I knew she hadn't even left the state. She was exactly 12 miles away, holed up in a luxury hotel downtown, registered under an alias. The name she chose? Claire Evans. Not even creative. I didn't go to the hotel. I didn't need to see her and Daniel with my own eyes. Instead, I waited for her to come home. She arrived the next morning, suitcase in hand, makeup just slightly too perfect for a red-eye flight. I kissed her cheek and asked, "How was Denver?" She said, "Exhausting, but productive." She had no idea I'd already printed her hotel invoice. No idea I had camera footage from the hotel lobby showing her kissing Daniel outside the elevator. No idea I'd spoken to a hotel staffer who, after a little generous tipping, confirmed the two had spent 3 nights together in the same suite. She even signed the room service receipt with a heart. C+D forever. God, it was pathetic. I wasn't sad anymore. What I felt was clarity. She wasn't just cheating. She was careless, smug, and completely convinced I was a fool. That's what changed everything. That's when my plan turned from protection to precision. Charlotte, my lawyer, and I began executing. We drafted quiet amendments to my company's bylaws, removing any right Lauren had to access documents or assets. We restructured accounts. I liquidated personal stocks I had in both our names and moved them into a trust. The house paid off in full. But the deed was under my LLC, not under both our names. She never bothered to double-check. She assumed. Big mistake. Emotionally, I went on the offensive too. I stopped asking where she was. I stopped acting concerned or clingy. I became cool, supportive, emotionally detached in the most pleasant, unnoticeable way. She ate it up. The less I cared, the more she acted sweet, almost guilty, or maybe just cocky. She started bringing me small gifts again. A watch, a bottle of scotch, concert tickets. I accepted them all, smiled, kissed her forehead, played the perfect fool. And she kept cheating. One night, I even watched her texting him while we sat on the couch watching a movie. She thought I couldn't see the screen over her shoulder. "I wish I was with you tonight. He's sitting right next to me, clueless as ever." Then she sent a photo of her legs curled on the couch. From my living room. I looked over at her and smiled. She looked up and smiled back. The smile of someone who thinks they've already won. She had no idea she was about to lose everything. A few nights later, I went to my office and pulled out a small velvet box I'd hidden in my drawer. Inside was the engagement ring I'd bought her 8 years ago. A round-cut diamond, flawless clarity. I'd saved for months to get it. I held it in my hand. Then I dropped it into the fireplace and watched it melt. Not out of rage, out of relief. I wasn't mourning her anymore. I was mourning who I used to be, the guy who thought loyalty was enough. That love, by itself, could keep someone from betraying you. But some people don't want love. They want power. They want control. And Lauren? She was about to find out what it feels like to lose both. Pretending to love someone you secretly pity is a strange, hollow art. You wake up next to them. You smile. You pour their coffee just the way they like it. And all the while, you're counting the days. That's what life became with Lauren. A quiet performance, but make no mistake, it wasn't passive. It was preparation. I refined the mask daily. When she walked in the room, I looked up and smiled like I still adored her. I kept having conversations about the future, vacations we'd take, renovations we'd start, kids we'd maybe have someday. She bought it all. The more detached I became, the more affectionate she tried to appear. There was guilt in her kisses now, or maybe panic. I could see it in her eyes, and I made sure to feed the illusion. I took her out to dinner twice a week, held her hand, bought her roses, posted "Lucky Man" on Instagram. Every like was a layer of camouflage. Privately, I doubled down. I worked late hours, or so she thought. In reality, I was redrafting the prenup she never bothered to review after we married. Turns out, she signed a version that limited her share of my company if infidelity was proven. Sloppy on her part, strategic on mine. I also started visiting people Lauren had no idea I knew. An ex-paralegal from her firm, an old friend of hers she ghosted after marriage. You'd be amazed what people are willing to share when you buy them lunch and offer no judgment. From those conversations, I learned something important. Lauren wasn't just cheating physically. She'd been slowly siphoning trust, influence, even finances in more ways than I imagined. She'd advised me to move some funds into a joint account for ease. She'd casually suggested I add her name as a signer on one of my business sub-accounts. Each piece looked small alone, but together they painted a clear picture. She wasn't leaving me, she was erasing me. But here's the thing. While she was planning her graceful exit, I was planting seeds for a collapse. I met with my CPA, shifted funds into protected accounts, rerouted upcoming contracts through a secondary holding company she couldn't touch, talked to the landlord of a property we owned in Vermont, had them quietly remove her from the lease and sign a no third-party access clause. On paper, it looked like minor estate maintenance. In reality, it was the slow-motion unbuilding of her empire. Back at home, I perfected the script. I'd catch her sneaking texts and smile. I'd hear her giggling in the hallway and call out, "Everything okay, babe?" She'd pause, throat caught, and reply, "Yeah, just work stuff." One night, she came home late and left her phone charging in the kitchen. I watched as Daniel's name popped up on her lock screen. "Daniel, soon, I promise. Just a few more pieces left to move." A few more pieces? That's when I knew. She wasn't just cheating. She was preparing to cash out. So I moved faster. I backed up every screenshot, every document, every digital footprint to 3 secure cloud servers and 1 external hard drive. I started sleeping with that drive locked in my office drawer. She once teased me about working too much. "You sure you're not hiding secrets in that desk?" she asked, laughing. I smiled. "Only the ones I plan to reveal later." She thought I was joking. What haunted me most wasn't the betrayal. It was how easy it had become for me to play this version of myself. Fake smiles, hollow intimacy, shallow I love yous. I realized I didn't miss the old us. I missed the version of myself I used to be, with someone honest. But that man was gone. Now, there was only this new version, precise, watchful, and absolutely done being played. The mask I wore. It wasn't just to trick her. It was to remind myself that revenge is best served cold, and I was freezing. There's a unique power in watching someone build their own illusion, especially when you're the one handing them the hammer and nails. Lauren thought she was coasting toward freedom, that she had the upper hand, and I made sure she believed that, down to the last detail. She started dropping more hints, more often. Offhand comments like, "Maybe it's time we considered separate accounts, just to keep things simpler. I've been thinking about taking a solo trip for clarity. If something ever happened between us, You'd want me to be okay, right? Each one was calculated. She wasn't trying to leave suddenly. She was softening the landing. She wanted out, but with everything still in her hands, so I gave it to her. Or so it seemed. I agreed to separate our checking accounts, even encouraged it. Yeah, I said. Might be good for us to have our own space, financially speaking. She was shocked how easily I agreed, so I transferred exactly $50,000 into her personal account. She lit up, kissed me. You've been so generous lately, she said. It means a lot. That was the moment I knew I had her. What she didn't know? The money came from an account I was preparing to close permanently. It was a shell, a funnel. She thought it was a gift. In reality, it was a glowing neon trail straight to her greed. I logged every transfer, every interaction. I wanted it all documented. Charlotte, my lawyer, had already filed a preliminary separation claim with a timestamp to prove the assets were voluntarily transferred outside the marital estate. Translation: whatever she had in her account was now legally hers, but what she didn't know was that was all she'd get. Around that same time, she floated the idea of trying a trial separation. No pressure, she said over wine, just some breathing room, space. I nodded. Whatever makes you feel whole. She smiled like I'd handed her the keys to a new life. That weekend, she packed a bag and went to stay with a friend. I already knew it wasn't a friend. It was Daniel. That same weekend, I had the locks changed. Not illegally. Remember, the house was owned by my LLC. We had it rekeyed and filed an occupancy termination form. The next Monday, her key didn't work. She called me, confused. I said, "Oh, I thought we were doing space. Seemed like a good opportunity for clarity." She didn't yell, didn't scream. That's how I knew she was hiding something. She just said, "Right, of course," just caught me off guard. In the weeks that followed, I let her move freely. She thought she was in control, that the soft separation would lead to a clean break, and half of everything. I continued to be kind, friendly, polite. I texted her updates about Max, our dog, told her I hoped she was doing well. She sent heart emojis. Once, she even said, "Maybe we can find our way back after this." I replied, "Anything's possible." But in the background, I was setting dominoes. I contacted every vendor we used under her name, Netflix, phone plans, credit cards, and removed her access. I changed our insurance policies, rewrote beneficiaries, even revised my will. Lauren, the woman who once controlled everything, now had access to nothing. She still thought she had half the company, half the house, half the life, but she had no idea that everything had been legally walled off weeks ago. The only thing she still had was confidence. And that's exactly what I needed her to have before the final blow. One night, she called me after what I'm guessing was a fight with Daniel. She sounded uncertain. "I miss the simplicity we had," she said. I didn't reply immediately. Then I asked, "Are you happy, Lauren?" She went quiet, then softly said, "I don't know." I smiled to myself and said, "Then maybe space was a mistake." She perked up instantly. "Do you mean that?" "I mean, maybe we should talk. Really talk. One last weekend. Just us." She agreed without hesitation. She didn't know it yet, but she was walking straight into the final phase. And when she arrived, she'd be stepping into a world where everything she thought she controlled was gone. There's a quote I used to scoff at, until it became my truth. The best revenge is not rage, it's redefinition. Lauren thought she was walking into a clean break, with dignity, comfort, and half of my life. What she didn't know was that every inch of that life, the house, the cars, The company had already been quietly redefined, and none of it included her. I built my empire from the ground up, not with flash or luck, but with brutal hours, relentless hustle, and painful sacrifices. Lauren came in midway through that journey. She enjoyed the ride, played the role, smiled in photos, and for a while, I believed she was my co-pilot. Turns out, she was more interested in the finish line than the drive. But I'm not the man who lets someone walk away with my legacy. I used every skill I had, every business tactic, legal trick, and psychological read to take back control. And I made sure it was all legal, silent, and undeniable. Let's break it down. 1. The business Lauren always thought she had partial ownership in my marketing firm. She was wrong. I never granted her actual equity. All she had was a non-binding MOU I gave her as a symbolic gesture when we got married, not a legal document. She never read the fine print. My lawyer Charlotte had me restructure the company into a single-member LLC with a protective shell under a trust 6 months ago. Lauren had no voting rights, no stake, no claim. I also moved all intellectual property, trademarks, client contracts, even software licensing, into a separate entity under my name. She couldn't touch a cent. 2. The house. Technically, the house was ours. In reality, it was deeded under a property holding company I established 2 years ago for tax efficiency. She didn't know that either. The mortgage was paid off under that entity, and the address on the deed wasn't our home address. It was a registered agent office in Delaware. That means she had no legal footing in it, no matter what story she told herself. 3. The accounts. Lauren thought she was siphoning money into her new account, undetected. She thought wrong. I made those deposits intentionally, from a non-marital asset account that Charlotte designated as exempt under Texas law, thanks to premarital inheritance funds. When she tried to include that money in her claims later, it backfired. She'd unknowingly removed marital funds from joint use, violating our prenup. Legal result: immediate disqualification of her claim to marital distribution. Poetic. 4. The documentation. Every transfer, every message, every hotel invoice, all organized in neat folders, time-stamped, categorized, and backed up. I didn't just want to win. I wanted to make it airtight. When the time came, I wanted her to see exactly how much she underestimated me. Not just emotionally, but intellectually. This wasn't revenge out of anger. It was balance. 5. The psychology. The most dangerous lie she believed wasn't that she could cheat and get away with it. It was that I wouldn't change, that I'd always be the safe, nice, naive husband who couldn't live without her. That was her fatal error. Because I didn't just change, I evolved. By the time she returned for our talk, the one final weekend I suggested, everything was in place. The house looked exactly the same. Candlelit dinner, Max wagging his tail at the door, a bottle of her favorite wine breathing on the counter. She walked in smiling, disarmed. Wow, you really went all out. I kissed her cheek. You're worth it. She had no clue it would be the last night she'd ever sleep in that house. She poured a glass of wine, sat down, and said, "So, where do we begin?" I smiled. "Actually, I think it's time you knew everything." Then I handed her a single red folder. On the cover, Termination Package. Her face changed. First confusion, then fear, then fury. She stared at the folder like it was a grenade. Maybe she thought it was a joke at first, some dramatic metaphor. But when she opened it, her face turned pale. Inside were 2 neat stacks of paper. On the left, copies of emails, text messages, hotel receipts, call logs, all showing her affair with Daniel in agonizing clarity. On the right, a signed letter from my attorney and a notarized document outlining the complete forfeiture of any claim to my business, assets, and estate, as per the terms of our prenup, if infidelity was proven. Her hands trembled. What is this? I sat back, calm. This is the life you built behind my back, and the life I built behind yours. She flipped through the pages, stammering. You spied on me? I nodded. I observed. Quietly. Thoroughly. Legally. She slammed the folder shut. This is insane, Jason. You can't just erase me. I leaned in, cool and direct. I didn't erase you, Lauren. You erased yourself. I just wrote it down. She tried to pivot. This doesn't change the fact that we built everything together. That business, that house, our life. I stopped her. Lauren, let me make this crystal clear. You didn't build my company. You never owned a piece of it. You never reviewed the operating agreement, never signed an equity contract. You assumed. And that assumption, it's what cost you everything. The house, legally protected, the funds, documented, the marriage, already poisoned by your choices. All I did was remove you from the throne you built in your head. She stared at me for a long time, and then, for the first time in a while, she dropped the act. So what now? She asked. You want revenge? You want me to suffer? I didn't answer right away. I walked over to the bar, poured 2 glasses of whiskey, one for me, one for her. Set hers down. She didn't touch it. No, I said, I don't want you to suffer. I want you to understand. I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. A slideshow began. Photo evidence of her trips with Daniel, her texts, her lies, some screenshots she probably forgot even existed. As the images flicked by, I watched her face. Shame, anger, regret, but no apology. When it ended, I told her the terms. You sign the divorce papers. No contest. You leave tonight. You take the money already in your personal account, and you never come near my business or my property again. She scoffed. You think I'll agree to that? I shrugged. Then we go to court, and I'll show the judge the same folder you just opened, and I'll let the press dig into Daniel's company's HR violations while we're at it. Her mouth opened slightly. You wouldn't? I smiled coldly. Try me. She sat there in silence for nearly 10 minutes. Max came and laid beside me, like he knew what was happening. Funny how dogs can sense chaos. Eventually, she reached for the pen I'd left on the table. She didn't ask for more, didn't argue, didn't even cry. She just signed. And in that moment, I saw not the woman I married, but the woman I never really knew. After she left, I stood in the doorway alone for a long time. Not triumphant, not broken, just free. I'd played the long game, and now it was over. But the fallout, that was just beginning. The day Lauren signed the papers, she didn't just walk out of my house. She walked straight into the unraveling of a life she thought she controlled. It started small. Her company email was flagged, not by me, but by HR, a routine audit triggered by unusual VPN activity. Apparently, Daniel had been using her corporate credentials to access restricted files during their business trips. She'd shared access out of trust. HR saw it as a breach of protocol. 3 days after she moved out, she was placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. 2 weeks later, fired. No severance, no references. Daniel didn't fare much better. Turns out, corporate romance is messy when one of you's technically a superior. When I anonymously submitted the evidence, photos, hotel stays, billed to the company card, screenshots of internal policy violations. I didn't even need to attach names. I let the timestamps and locations speak for themselves. Daniel was asked to resign. No lawsuit, no headlines, just a quiet removal and a dead-end LinkedIn profile. Lauren called me the day she got the news, not to apologize, not to ask for help, just to scream. "You think you're clever? You think you won?" I didn't even raise my voice. "You lost the moment you betrayed me. Everything after that was just math." She hung up. That was the last time I ever heard her voice. Publicly, I kept everything discreet. No online drama, no vague Instagram quotes, no interviews or TikToks. But words still got around. Friends noticed Lauren had disappeared from events. Her family, who once treated me like a placeholder, started reaching out, awkwardly. "Hey man, we didn't know. Sorry." I didn't respond. I didn't need to explain myself. People always find out. My business thrived. Turns out, cutting out emotional parasites has a way of sharpening your focus. I doubled our client base in 3 months, hired new talent, reinvested in our branding. And when I finally stood on the balcony of my office building, watching the sunset reflect off the downtown skyline, I felt something I hadn't felt in over a year: peace. But the victory wasn't about punishment. It wasn't even about justice. It was about clarity. Lauren and I once stood side by side, dreaming out loud. Now she was a closed chapter, a cautionary tale. And me? I was just beginning again, without her shadow. Sometimes I wonder if she ever really loved me, or if I was just a stepping stone, a stable base until someone flashier came along. But then I remember, her betrayal wasn't about him. It was about her, and the life she thought she deserved without earning it. The day everything collapsed, it wasn't a storm. It was a quiet demolition, calculated, complete, and utterly deserved. It was early spring when I saw her again. I was grabbing coffee near the park, headphones in, just another normal Saturday. And there she was, Lauren, standing across the street, thinner, tired, dressed in a hoodie that looked 2 sizes too big. She hesitated, then crossed toward me. "Jason," she said. I took one earbud out. "Lauren." She smiled nervously, like we were old friends meeting by chance. I didn't smile back. "You have a minute?" she asked. I glanced at my coffee, then at her. "Sure." We sat at a nearby bench. She looked different, not just physically, emotionally. That quiet arrogance she used to wear like perfume, gone. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded letter. "I wrote this months ago. Never sent it. I figured you wouldn't read it." I didn't reach for it, just nodded. "Okay. I don't expect you to forgive me," she said, "but I need you to know it wasn't all fake." She paused. "I really did love you, Jason, for a long time. Before it got complicated." I stayed silent. Let her speak. She went on. "It wasn't about Daniel. Not really. It was about me. Feeling stuck, irrelevant, small next to you. You were winning at everything. I felt like a guest in my own life. And instead of talking to you, I tried to build something else." Quietly, stupidly, her eyes welled up. "I wasn't trying to take everything from you. I just wanted something that was mine." I finally looked at her. "And so you lied, cheated, manipulated, because you felt small?" She winced. "I know how that sounds, but when you're drowning in your own ego, you don't always realize you're dragging someone else down with you." She took a shaky breath. "I lost everything. My job, my reputation. You." I nodded. "That part was never mine to take. You handed it over yourself." Silence settled between us. Then she said something I didn't expect. "You were always too good for me." I almost laughed, not out of humor, but disbelief. "You knew that back then. You just didn't care." She wiped her eyes and stood. "I'm sorry, Jason, not just for what I did, but for who I became. And I hope, someday, you'll be happy again. Truly." I nodded slowly. "I already am." She swallowed hard, then walked away. I watched her disappear down the path, a woman I once would have walked the world for. Now just another story. I survived. I didn't read the letter she handed me until that night. It was messy, rambling, a mix of apologies and justifications. One line stuck out. "If I had known how far I'd fall, I never would have jumped." And that's the thing. She did know. She just never thought the ground would hit back.